I met Samantha at a house party I barely wanted to attend. The music was loud, the air thick with sweat and beer. I was drunk enough to forget most of the night. She was tipsy, confident, laughing like the world owed her joy. We talked for 10 minutes, maybe less, before kissing. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't deep, it was reckless and fast. Her perfume mixed with cheap vodka and bad decisions. We stumbled into a guest room and locked the door. The chemistry was raw, instant, electric in all the wrong ways. No promises, no names that mattered beyond the night. She told me her name was Samantha. I told her mine. Then it was just noise, skin and blurred memories. When I woke up, she was gone. My shirt was backwards, my head pounding, my phone buzzing. Her number was saved as Samantha Party. I didn't think much of it. Just another night, I'd forget by the weekend. 3 weeks later, she texted me. Said she'd been thinking about that night. Wanted to grab coffee sometime. I hesitated, stared at the message for a minute too long. I couldn't even remember her face clearly. But curiosity wins every time. We met at a small cafe near downtown. She looked better than I remembered. Brown hair, green eyes, confidence in every move. I joked about barely recognizing her. She smirked and said she'd take that as a compliment. That coffee turned into 4 hours of conversation. She was funny, sharp, effortlessly charming. Not the messy drunk girl I remembered from the party. We talked about work, travel, bad movies, and worse exes. She listened when I spoke, laughed at my sarcasm. By the time we said goodbye, something had shifted. She texted me that night before I even got home. And suddenly, we were something. The kind of something that fills your phone with messages. The kind that makes ordinary days feel lighter. Samantha started spending weekends at my place. Cooking breakfast in my kitchen like she owned it. Leaving her toothbrush next to mine without asking. It felt easy, natural, dangerous, and how perfect it seemed. I told myself not to overthink it. We laughed too much for it to be fake. We kissed too often for it to be temporary. Even my friends said she seemed different. Real. Maybe this time I'd found someone worth trusting. She lived with a roommate named Chloe. Chloe was all drama, noise, and constant attention. Every conversation turned into a story about her. I didn't like her, but she was harmless. At least that's what I thought. Back then, I didn't notice the small things. The way Chloe looked at me when Samantha talked. The quiet smirk when she joked about relationships. The offhand comments that didn't sound like jokes. I ignored it. Because when you're happy, you don't look for cracks. You pretend the foundation is solid. You tell yourself this time, it's different. But deep down, part of me already knew. Perfect things don't last. They never do. It started small, the kind of changes you almost miss. Texts that used to come fast started taking hours. Calls went unanswered with excuses that felt rehearsed. Samantha stopped staying over as often. She said work was stressful, that she needed space. But space sounded a lot like distance. She used to laugh at everything I said. Now she rolled her eyes, sighed, or changed the subject. Little things became arguments that never made sense. She accused me of being clingy when I asked to see her. I wasn't clingy, I was paying attention. The warmth between us started fading, slowly but clearly. She used to reach for my hand in public. Now she kept her phone closer than she kept me. I started noticing patterns I didn't want to see. The late-night texts she smiled at but wouldn't show me. The sudden nights out with friends from work. The random new perfume I never bought her. I tried to ignore it at first. Told myself everyone goes through rough patches. But lies have a smell, and hers started to linger. Then there was Chloe. She became more talkative around me. Always dropping hints, half-truths, and subtle digs. She'd say things like, "It's healthy for women to explore." Or, "Samantha, been really enjoying her freedom lately. And she'd smile that smug little smile when she said it. Like she knew something I didn't. One night, I showed up at their apartment with dinner. Samantha wasn't home yet, Chloe was. She invited me in, pretending to be polite. We talked while waiting, but it didn't feel casual. She asked if I trusted Samantha completely. I said yes, trying to sound confident. She laughed softly and said, "That's cute." Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. She leaned in and whispered that Samantha just needs excitement. That sometimes stability isn't enough for people like her. I asked what that meant. Chloe smiled and said, "You're safe, too safe." Then she changed the topic like nothing happened. When Samantha finally came home, I didn't mention it. I watched them interact. The secret glances, the awkward silence between them. It felt like they were speaking a language I couldn't hear. That night, Samantha picked a fight over nothing. Said I was overanalyzing everything. Said she needed less pressure. I said okay, pretending I didn't care. But I did. Every time her phone lit up, I noticed. Every time she smiled at a message, my stomach turned. I started memorizing her excuses. Every late shift, every girl's night. The stories never lined up. Still, I didn't confront her. Not yet. You can't win a war by showing your hand too early. So I played calm. I told her I trusted her completely. She smiled, relieved believing the lie. That was when I knew for sure she was hiding something. And if she thought I was too safe to notice, she was about to find out how dangerous I could be when I stayed quiet. The night I found out wasn't planned. I went to Samantha's apartment to grab my charger. She was in the shower, humming like life was perfect. Her phone sat on the counter, screen lighting up. Curiosity whispered louder than guilt. I picked it up, just for a second. A message from someone named Ethan. "Last night was crazy. Still can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. I scrolled. Flirty text, gym jokes, inside references. Nothing explicit, but full of meaning. She'd been seeing him for weeks. 3, maybe 4. Then I opened her group chat with Chloe. That was where the real poison lived. Samantha wasn't just flirting. She was mocking me. She called me the placeholder. Said I was safe but boring. Said I'd beg her to stay even if she cheated. Chloe replied with laughing emojis. Encouraging it. Telling her she deserved excitement. They joked about me like I was some clueless dog. A loyal, pathetic golden retriever. My hands were shaking, but not from sadness. From clarity. Every doubt I had was right. Every red flag I ignored was waving in my face. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every insult, every emoji. Sent them to a hidden email I'd created. Deleted the traces. Put her phone back exactly how I found it. Then I waited. She came out of the shower, smiling. Wrapped in a towel, hair dripping. She kissed me like nothing was wrong. Said she loved me before walking away. I said it back, just as calm. But inside, something cold settled in. Not anger, not heartbreak. Focus. Ethan was easy to find. Her Instagram made it obvious. Personal trainer, shirtless posts. Car that sounded like a dying lawnmower. Everything about him screamed cliché. I tracked their hangouts through tags, photos, stories. The nights she said she was working late. The ones she spent at his apartment. I didn't confront her. Why give her the drama she wanted? She thought she was in control. That she could play both sides without consequences. Let her think that. I smiled when she talked about busy weekends. I kissed her goodnight when she lied about work events. She thought I was the fool. That was her mistake. Because I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to destroy her peace the same way she destroyed mine. Quietly. Precisely. No screaming, no second chances. Only timing. And Chloe, sweet, jealous Chloe, was going to help me do it. She just didn't know it yet. While Samantha laughed behind my back, I was already planning her ending. One that would hurt more than betrayal ever could. The kind that leaves no room for forgiveness. Just silence. I watched Chloe more than I watched Samantha for a week straight. Not with binoculars, just with attention and timing that felt surgical. I learned her patterns like lines in a cheap paperback. Which nights she stayed in, and which nights Michael flaked. When she got off work, and which coffee shop she lingered at. She loved attention the way some people love oxygen. Little compliments filled the emptiness nobody else bothered to notice. So I gave her small ones, nothing flashy or needy. A genuine laugh at her jokes, a memory of something she once said. An offhand question about her day that bored people usually ignore. I let my presence be steady, without being obvious or invasive. When Samantha was away with work friends, I stayed a little longer. Helped with laundry, joked about Mark, listened to the little tragedies. Chloe soaked it up like a plant, finally watered after drought. Texts followed. Memes, late-night reactions, a selfie with the caption, "Ugh." I kept my replies measured. Not provoking, not cold either. Let her do most of the chasing, so she felt in control. Jealousy is a slow-moving animal. It needs bait to show its teeth. I became that bait with a smile and a patient hand. She started to compare him and me out loud more often. Said things about stability, as if stability itself was an insult. I nodded and let her finish, because she needed to vocalize it. That's how seeds grow, by being named and tended to. Her messages turned more personal. Phone calls lasted longer. She sent photos of small moments she wanted someone to notice. I noticed them. I made her feel seen in ways Mark never did. Not because I wanted her, but because she was useful to the plan. I underlined her jealousy, without ever mentioning Samantha or Ethan. A compliment here, a touch on the elbow there, a memory I pretended to treasure. She asked if I was available in that vague, dangerous way. I answered with a gentle ambiguity that felt like permission. She confessed things she never told Samantha, like resentments and wishes. Her words were weapons, honed and ready for the moment I would pull the trigger. I never promised a future. I never spoke of commitment. That would have spoiled everything and cheapened the reveal. Instead, I let her imagine outcomes and feed her fantasies alone. She started to text me when Samantha was home, subtle and quick. Little plans for coffee became late-night visits when the roommate was away. We crossed lines she and I both pretended weren't lines at all. She kissed me once, then again, and the second time lingered. I watched her face when she thought no one else could see it. Regret mixed with relief, in a way that felt delicious to observe. Chloe's eyes told me she wanted to be the one chosen. She wanted Samantha to fail, so she could step into what she believed was owed. So I let her believe she was winning. I never promised her loyalty. I never promised her tomorrow. But I gave her enough to trust the impulse that would ruin them both. Everything was set into motion, without a single raised voice. Now the stage only needed the right night, and I knew exactly when. It was a Friday that felt ordinary enough to be dangerous. Samantha said she had a work dinner and would be late. She kissed me quick and left with perfect, practiced calm. Chloe flopped on the couch in sweatpants and a half-hearted smile. I offered a beer, and she accepted like a lifeline. We talked about nothing and everything in the same breath. Her guard was down, and she didn't know how to hide it. I moved through the apartment like I belonged more than either of them. There's an art to seeming casual when you're not. I asked about Mark with the same tone I used for weather. She launched into complaints as if I were a therapist. I listened and nodded and gave the reactions that fuel mistakes. She laughed at something he did, and I laughed harder. Small victories stack up into a collapse if you're patient. When Samantha called, Chloe silenced her phone too fast. She made a face that was supposed to mean nothing and meant everything. I suggested we watch a movie while we waited, and she agreed. The lamp threw warm light over her face, and I watched for cracks. She confessed that Mark flaked again last week and swore he'd change. I told her that anyone who treats you like an option isn't worth the breath. She stared at me like I'd handed her a mirror with new teeth. There were moments where she almost said the words she wanted. She reached across the coffee table and touched my hand once, just to see. The touch lasted long enough to be a promise without the paperwork. Later, when Samantha texted that she'd be out even later, Chloe's eyes glinted. The tiny smile that crossed her face looked like victory practiced in private. I told Chloe I had an idea, and she leaned in like a conspirator. She wanted to know how serious I was, and I answered with a look. She came over that night while Samantha was still out. The apartment smelled like takeout and tension. Chloe sat on my bed and started talking about regret and wasted chances. Her voice got quieter as she admitted things she never dared say out loud. Her hands trembled when she reached for mine, and I let them. Then she kissed me, soft and messy, like a confession without punctuation. It felt inevitable to her and deliberate to me. We didn't pretend it was love. We pretended it was needed. Afterward, she left, her eyes bright with something like hope and dread. She texted me at 2 a.m, heart emojis and sudden honesty. I answered with measured distance, so she felt the chase, not the catch. 2 weeks later, I invited Samantha over for dinner, nothing special. I texted Chloe to come early and bring nothing but herself. She arrived with a nervous energy, wearing one of my shirts she'd borrowed. She hugged me like a thief hugging a trophy. Samantha walked in an hour later, hair done, perfume sharp and intentional. She smiled at me the way you smile when you're hiding receipts. The air shifted when Chloe appeared in the doorway, shirt hanging loose. Samantha's smile faltered, then froze, then snapped toward fury. Chloe's face went pale and proud at once, like a cat that just pushed a vase. In the silence that followed, the truth didn't need words to speak. Everything I had set in motion came alive in that single, charged second. Samantha froze in the doorway, her face twisting through shock and disbelief. Her eyes darted between me and Chloe, searching for a lie to hold on to. Chloe stood still, clutching the edge of her borrowed shirt like armor. No one spoke for a moment that felt longer than a year. Then Samantha's voice cracked through the silence like glass breaking. "You slept with her," she screamed, pointing at Chloe with shaking hands. Chloe's chin lifted, voice trembling but sharp enough to cut. "You slept with Ethan. Don't act like you're innocent." The name hit the air like a gunshot. Samantha flinched, realizing she'd lost control of the narrative. I didn't move. I just watched the world she built collapse piece by piece. Samantha turned on me, eyes red, lips trembling with desperate anger. "How could you do this to me?" she said, voice breaking mid-sentence. I almost laughed at the hypocrisy dripping from her words. "You did it first," I said, calm as a stone. "You lied, you mocked me, you thought I'd beg you to stay." Chloe looked between us, guilt mixing with twisted satisfaction. Samantha lunged forward, grabbing her by the arm. The fight started before I could take a step back. Screaming, shoving, hands tangled in hair and fury. They slammed into my coffee table, breaking it in half. Glass scattered like punctuation for every insult they screamed. Chloe shouted that Samantha never deserved me. Samantha called her a snake, a backstabber, a jealous parasite. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching the chaos unfold. It was ugly and perfect at the same time. Revenge doesn't always come with flames. Sometimes it comes in mascara streaks and broken furniture. When Samantha swung at me, her hand connected with my jaw. That was my cue to end the show. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. Both women froze, breathing hard, faces streaked with tears and rage. "What are you doing?" Samantha asked, voice shaking. Ending this, I said. I told the operator everything. Domestic disturbance, assault, property damage. By the time the cops arrived, the room was a disaster zone. They separated us, took statements, and cuffed them both. Samantha begged, tears spilling, promising to fix everything. Chloe stayed silent, eyes wide and hollow, realizing the cost of her choices. The officers led them out, and the door clicked shut behind them. Silence returned like a friend I hadn't seen in years. I sat on the ruined couch and laughed until my ribs ached. Not out of joy, but relief, like exhaling a storm I'd held too long. Later that night, I filed restraining orders. No contact, no second chances, no explanations. When I got home, the air smelled like freedom. No perfume, no lies, no noise. Just quiet, broken furniture and peace. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat back and looked around. The place was a mess, but it was mine again. No more pretending, no more placeholders. Just me, the silence, and the satisfaction of closure. The kind that doesn't need revenge anymore, because it's already done. Weeks passed, and the noise faded like an echo down a long hallway. No calls, no texts, no sudden knocks at the door. The restraining orders held like invisible walls between past and present. I slept better than I had in years. No more checking my phone for lies wrapped in affection. No more waiting for apologies that never meant anything. The apartment stayed quiet, peaceful in a way that felt earned. I bought a parrot from a rescue shelter and named her Peanut. She talked too much, but at least she told the truth. She repeated my words back without twisting them into guilt. I'd sit with her at night, drink in hand, laughter soft and tired. Sometimes she'd mimic Samantha's laugh by accident and stop mid-sound. Even she seemed to know when silence was better. People say revenge doesn't heal you, and maybe they're right. But it clears the space where pain used to live. And in that silence, peace grows roots. Now when I look in the mirror, I don't see the fool she described. I see the man who finally stopped chasing ghosts. I see freedom dressed in quiet. And for once, that's enough.